In terms of general equity exposure, we think it more likely actually that equities continue to defy the skeptics and to continue to climb the wall of worry. We think, however, that leadership in the equity market will change. Zero interest rates have meant that the rising tide of money is probably concealing those people who are swimming without any swimming costumes. And so when the tide recedes and we begin to see interest rates go back to more normal levels, we're going to see which companies are badly exposed and which companies are actually prepared for an increase in interest payments and a reduction in asset values. So we think the market leadership will change. We favour value because it's underperformed for so long as a style, and we think that value companies are terribly attractive because many of the companies have learned to live with zero revenue growth, and we think that they'll be very resilient even if we don't get an increased amount of economic activity that we foresee. In terms of the split between equities and property and fixed income, we actually think that the most dangerous position to be now is in fixed income, particularly in countries where the currency is likely to come under pressure. We think that at current low levels of interest rates, small changes in interest rates actually result in very significant moves in the capital value of the bonds. And we think that of the major asset classes, it's probably bonds that are the most likely to suffer as interest rates start to normalize, and equities will be relatively resilient in the face of rising interest rates. We think that fixed income is likely to underperform equities from here. Interest rates are unlikely to go much lower from here and could conceivably go quite a lot higher. And at such low levels of interest rates, what's called the duration and convexity effects of bonds means that there will be significant capital loss if interest rates back up even a little bit more than is currently expected. So we think the better place to be is in equities rather than bonds. For Australian-based investors, bear in mind that you will have probably exposure to Australian equities, which may constitute a large part of your wealth. It's likely that the Australian banks will be a large part of those portfolios. Bear in mind that Australian banks make their money by lending to households in the form of mortgages. Bear in mind that your wealth is also probably largely tied up in the value of your home or a negatively geared property. Effectively, in concentrating on Australian equities, you are doubling up on an Australian property bet, and that's something you should think about. I'm not saying that Australian property will fall. Too many people have lost their shirt in making that prediction, but it is an over-concentration of your risk, and we would suggest that you diversify your holdings by looking to global equities and reducing your exposure to the Australian property cycle.